Hi Weatherby students. Today I'm going to be talking you through probably one of my favourite poems in our anthology. It's no Larkin, but I think it has some really beautiful images in it. And I think it has quite a lovely message too, once you've sort of explored the hidden meanings. So I'm just going to talk you through line by line, my own personal interpretation. But as ever, it's up to you to go back to this poem and to think about what you think certain images conjure in your mind and what you think the message is. So, starting with the first line, white snow. Now, as literature students, we know immediately pathetic fallacy is frequently used in poetry. So, immediately there's quite a sombre atmosphere created. So, white sky is something you would rather, is quite peculiar to observe. And it creates for me a very cold, eerie image. However, obviously white can connote we've got innocence, purity, and that might be something that you want to explore in context of this poem. So white sky over the hemlocks, bowed with snow. Now a hemlock is an American fir tree, but obviously hemlock produces poison. So we really do have a sense of foreboding straight away, just with that opening line. Now, that is an extremely powerful verb there. The idea of something being bowed or sort of, it's actually in Dulce Decorum Est as well. It's this image of the weight of the snow being so heavy that it's causing the limbs of the hemlock. So we've got personification there as well, to be sort of, to bow and to be weighted down by the snow. Again, giving a sense of the excess. So it's an extremely wintry image here. Saw you not at the beginning of evening. Now, that's a very peculiar position of the words here. You know, the syntax is very strange. We would say, did you not see? But immediately you would have noticed that it's in second person. So it's addressing the reader. This makes it very personal, and it also obviously makes it a vernacular poem, so where someone is talking to you. So, saw you not, quite informal, they're asking us a question. At the beginning of evening, again, pathetic fallacy. Does it represent death? Is it a metaphor for that, like in so much war poetry that I might have spoken to you about before? And if so, does this mean something bad is about to happen because it's the beginning of evening? Saw you not at the beginning of evening the antlered buck and his doe? So a doe is a female deer. We've all seen Sound of Music. Doe. Anyway, so the antlered buck. Now, I think it's important that the antlers referred to, because I think it's a clue for later on where the antlers are described as being lost. So just remember that. Saw you not at the beginning of evening the antlered buck and his doe standing in the apple orchard. Now, we've got a very long sentence here, and I think it creates quite a panicked tone, but it's up to you to think about what you think the effect is there. And then we have the contrast of this simple sentence, I saw them, and then the repetition makes it all the more dramatic. I saw them suddenly go, obviously, with the word suddenly, heightening this sense of drama. Always talk about sentence lengths in poetry. I know that it's easier to do with prose because we often forget that we have sentences in poems, but for me that's very stark, long, rather labyrinthine sentence that sort of goes on, that really makes it sound very spoken, followed by that pithy, simple sentence. I saw them suddenly go, tails up, with long leaps, lovely and slow. The alliteration there gives a sort of, I'd say, a very sort of lilting effect. And it enhances, for me, the beauty of the buck and the doe. And visually, I don't know about you, but I can really imagine them leaping, the long, lovely leaps, the long leaps, lovely and slow. Up, down, up, down, up, down, just like the leaping animals. Over the stone wall, into the wood of hemlocks, bowed with snow. So the stone wall is a very harsh image, and it's obviously man-made. And I just think that that's interesting. We think about, even it might be quite an eerie natural image, but at the same time a beautiful one, in contrast to this sort of stone wall, which is acting as a barrier to the buck and his doe. Also, let's pay attention to this use of personal pronoun. Is the doe a sort of afterthought? The buck, and his doe, insignificant. Or does that use of the personal pronoun, that possessive personal pronoun, his doe, create a stronger connection between the buck and his doe? Again, that's something that you will have to explore. So far, stanza 1, we've got pathetic fallacy, creating quite an ominous image. We've got this sort of the hemlocks that are sort of being weighed down by snow. You could say that this is all suggesting a sense of foreboding, with the snow being quite cold and representing winter, and it's also evening, so the idea of endings. But then we've got the apple orchard. Now, an apple orchard, immediately, those who know your Bible will perhaps think of the Garden of Eden, where the forbidden tree, and you will think about the apple perhaps representing sin and temptation. So is this the idea that sin, this is a beautiful image of this landscape, but there is sin occurring, there is temptation? That's something that you can pursue. We've got the change of sentence structures. I saw them suddenly go. And then we've got this really beautiful image. I think it's important that the image is so beautiful of the buck and his doe, in order to make the next two stanzas more effective. So we then have a one-line stanza, stanza 2. Now lies he here. Again, we have a very odd position of words here. For me, the effect is, now lies he here. It sounds very, it creates a very severe and serious tone. I'd even say it's quite archaic. It sounds sort of very old-fashioned, as if you're reading something from scripture. Now lies he here. It conveys a sense of doom. His wild blood, the idea that he belongs to the wild, this natural force. His wild blood scalding the snow. Now, if something is scalding, it is boiling hot. So it's this idea that his life is sort of in such contrast to the freezing cold snow. I also creates a very visual image of the white and the red. And then we have a very different tone for the third stanza. We've had this rhyming scheme, A. Snow, doe, go, slow, snow, monosyllables, very powerful rhyme. I think that just creates sort of, perhaps the effect could be the continuity of the buck and the doe sort of leaping in rhythm. We also hear the fact that the rhyme is maintained. I want you to think about the effect of that. But here we're going to have a change in rhyme. And I think that could show the disorder that's occurred, or the fact that something very natural has been lost. How strange a thing is death, bringing to his knees, bringing to his antlers. Now, again, this really brings out the spoken tone of the poem, that it's almost as if the poet is stopping themselves, bringing to his knees. So, we've got this powerful caesura, well, actually, bringing to his antlers. So a caesura, to remind you, is a pause within the line of a poem. And then we have this enjambment, this run-on line. Bringing to his antlers the buck in the snow. For me, the enjambment helps give a sense of falling. How strange a thing. So the repetition of how, this anaphora, repetition of a phrase, how strange, creates a very reflective tone for me. Someone really sort of brooding. Isn't it odd? Death, that just like that, it can bring something down into the snow that was so alive before, again in contrast with the leaping. How strange a thing. Very strong caesura. We've got the comma and this dash. A mile away by now, it may seem. Under the heavy hemlocks, I think the alliteration adds to a sense of heaviness there. That as the moments pass, enjambment, conveying a sense of passing time, shift their little load, letting fall a feather of snow. Now, it's interesting that the weather's changing. Time is passing. It conveys like that life goes on. But I think that the fact that the snow is falling suggests hope, suggests something brighter is on the horizon. And for me, the image of a feather of snow is something very delicate and beautiful, making this, for me, a very positive image. Life. So we've got the very strong end stop there. So a powerful end. So when there's punctuation at the end of a line, rather than allowing it to run on, it's called an end stop in contrast to the enjambment. Life. Powerful caesura. Looking out attentive from the eyes of the doe. So the snow is falling. Life goes on, moments are passing, there's still snow, but the snow is falling. And all we have left now is the very obviously attentive eyes of the doe on their own. Now, that could be a very sad image of how attentive this doe is in fear of their life. But actually, for me, this poem is celebrating the resilience of the doe, still alive. Very much, that powerful last line that begins with the word life, because the doe is alive, living on and persevering. Now, you don't need any context for your exam, but this is a war poem. So this might make you think about the loss of soldiers and the idea that other troops had to continue and fight on. But for me, this is a beautiful poem about the resilience of nature. It celebrates the elegance of nature, the beauty of the snow. And I think that it's exploring how sad it is that humans can so brutally ruin animals, sort of destroy animals like a buck. But there are multiple interpretations. It's a very ambiguous poem, and it's up to you to come up to a personal response as to what you think it's about. But the sort of questions you will get in the exam for this poem will be something along the lines of, how does St. Vincent Millay powerfully convey loss or death, or use nature to explore powerful powerful thoughts and feelings or powerful emotions. We know that we're going to get an adverb, powerfully, movingly, vividly. This poem is all of those things. And before you go into the exam, you can anticipate what sort of question you will get. So this is about death, it's about loss, it's about nature. Okay. If you have any questions, send me an email and I will be delighted to talk to you more about this poem.